Now, as we all know, headed into next season, Mitchell Robinson and his status is on a different level right now because we don't know where he's going to end up. Mitchell Robinson could start the season for the Knicks, or he could end up missing some time. If that happens, the Knicks are going to have to figure out what they're going to do with that roster. They're going to either have to make another move with their MLE, sign another player to this team, and that player will play some minutes while Mitchell Robinson's out, or they could do something else. They could get creative. And one way to do that is by playing OG Anunoby at the center position. And according to Fred Katz of The Athletic, Tom Thibodeau, before OG Anunoby went down last season, was actually thinking about potentially having OG play some minutes at the center spot. We're going to break down these latest reports today and so much more. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And make sure you have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. The Knicks want OG Anunoby to play minutes at the center position. Yes, you heard me right. The Knicks potentially want Anunoby to help them play some small ball when they play next season. Now, again, this might be dependent on matchup. It might be dependent on injury, if Mitchell Robinson's available or not, if the Knicks even utilize the MLE or not. Maybe they utilize Preston Achiuwa, Jericho Sims, and then for maybe 3 or 4 minutes a quarter, they utilize Anunoby and a combination of him and Randle at the 5 spot. If they do that, you might have to understand why, because now we finally have the roster where Tom Thibodeau might trust where he can do that, because you don't need as much rim protection when you have the best wing duo in the entire league on defense in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. But before I give my take on this entire situation, let's hear what Fred Katz has to say as he covered this in his recent article. Shout out to Fred Katz of The Athletic. He gives us the following information. The current roster construction could demand that the Knicks go small, meaning that Randle or Anunoby would play the 5. Playing only Robinson and Achiuwa at center would make it difficult for Josh Hart and Donte DiVincenzo to reach 25 minutes. So there is a little bit of a backstory here. Maybe the reason why the Knicks want to go small is because they want to open up the minutes for other players. If the Knicks run out that same 9-man rotation, they don't make any changes, Josh Hart and Donte DiVincenzo might play 20-plus minutes each. That's it. If you want to see them play 25 minutes or 30 minutes, changes are going to have to be made. A small ball lineup could do that, and Anunoby could be the star player there. And it's not only my words here. Fred Katz actually remembers when Tom Thibodeau said last season, this is something he wanted to do and implement. You know, OG Anunoby playing the 5. Shout out to Fred Katz for keeping it going here. According to Katz, Achiuwa is smaller than your conventional center. Enough so that there were moments when Thibodeau relied on Anunoby to defend 5s while Achiuwa was on the court with him. And that brings us to a breadcrumb Tom Thibodeau dropped before last season ended. Anunoby got hurt not long after the Knicks acquired him this past winter. First was the elbow, then the elbow surgery, then the return, then the re-injury of the elbow, then another return, and then the hamstring that essentially ended his season. Thibodeau said that had Anunoby not jostled in and out of the lineup, the coach would have tried to have him in more situations where he could defend centers. Now, that is a major difference for me, especially for me watching Tom Thibodeau over all these years. He's had a chance to go small time and time again, but he never has. But maybe he never has because he's never had a player like Anunoby on his team. Anunoby legitimately is the only player on this Knicks roster that can guard 1 through 5. Tom Thibodeau knows that. He's seen that. And when he guards centers, he does a very good job on them. I'm not saying it's an excellent job each and every time, but way better than you would expect for a player his size, a player his strength. That actually speaks volumes about how strong he is to keep defenders that are centers in front of him, keep them away from the rim, push them back. You have to be strong to do that. So shout out to OG Anunoby for having more strength than a lot of people are actually talking about here. Katz continues this article here by stating, Anunoby isn't the only player who can encourage an adjustment. Bridges' presence could do so as well. A great way to protect against missing rim protection is to not allow anyone to get to the hoop at all. These are not the circumstances of 2 years ago when Tom Thibodeau resisted to do so because he had Julius Randle and Obi Toppin in the front court. That would have counted as going small, but also would have lacked the defense to make it viable. That's the part there. That's the part we all have to remember. That's the most important thing. Defense. He couldn't go small when he had Obi Toppin because the defense would have went to the floor and it would have made sense. He tried it a couple of times and he was disgusted at what he saw. I say disgusted because we never saw it again. This time around, he has a roster more in line to play his set of style. Even though you don't have the rim protection, that penetration from going inside the paint from that defense is out of this world. When you have defenders like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby on the lineup and you can't get into the paint, it makes it less likely that you have to rely on that rim protection, even though you need it, because, of course, over the course of a 48-minute game, somebody's going to get through the defense and somebody's going to have to go to the line, and that's going to happen. So you have to make sure you have rim protection available. However, if you have a good defense starting out, that rim protection doesn't have to be as significant, and I think that's what Fred Katz is stating here. But even if it doesn't have to be significant, you still want defense played at that position. So who do you need then? You need a player like OG Anunoby. The only thing I have an issue with is OG going to play the center position on offense as well too in this 2 to 4 minute gap each and every quarter? Because if he is, I don't know about that. I don't know how Anunoby's going to thrive on that end against other centers. He might have a harder time doing that, playing his game. I would prefer, if they did this, that they switched between Randle and Anunoby. Anunoby plays defense on centers, and then on offense, we have to deal with bully ball Randle. And bully ball Randle down low playing center could take on anybody, at least for 4 minutes a quarter. I don't mind that. And if I'm freeing up minutes to give to Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Miles McBride, all these other players on the bench, I'm going to do that because that is the most important thing to me right now. And I think it's important to the Knicks. That's why we're talking about Anunoby potentially playing the center position, because they know they need to be creative right now with Mitchell Robinson potentially missing time and potentially not even starting the season. You have to do something. In my opinion, this is part of the plan. Having the creativity to say, well, if Robinson's not going to be there and I'm only going to have Precious Achiuwa, I'm only going to have Jericho Sims, then I'm going to need to put a lineup out there that makes sense, that can protect this roster until Mitchell Robinson's healthy enough to come back. And if that means I have to play OG Anunoby at the center a few minutes to do so, then I'm going to do it. So I think we're going to see it. The Knicks finally have the roster for Thibs to trust that. My only issue is if you play a player out of position like that, what's going to happen to them? Could you risk injury to them? I say that because we did it last year, right? And we saw what happened. Injuries piled up, and I don't want to see that this year. We are too good of a team. We have too good of a roster to go through that again. So I do not want to do that. You play OG Anunoby at a position that even though he can play it, he probably shouldn't. There's a good chance he gets hurt. There's a good chance he gets injured. And I don't want to see that. OG Anunoby, whether you like it or not, is probably one of the main pieces on this team that will make or break us going to the NBA Finals. If Anunoby is not available for a significant period of time, the Knicks are going to struggle. We're not going to be able to make it up. There's no way to do that because there's no one on this roster, no one that can make up Anunoby, his ability, and his impact. If he goes down, the Knicks will have to be creative, of course, but nobody's going to replace that. And that's why I hope the Knicks don't have to play Anunoby at the center position. But here's my pushback to that, guys, and maybe you guys will agree as well, too. Tom Thibodeau, if he has a fully healthy roster and he's playing 9 out, maybe at most 10, are we seeing a small ball lineup? Because I don't think we're going to see a small ball lineup in that situation. Tom Thibodeau would play a lineup that's small ball only if he was forced to. If Thibodeau's not forced to play that lineup, then why would he? What position or team would the Knicks have to be in for a small ball lineup to make sense? Because I would think the only way that would make sense is if the Knicks are dealing with injuries, somebody's out for the night, or something like that. Somebody's in foul trouble, whatever the case may be. That's when you go small because you have to be creative in that situation. I can see Thibodeau doing that, but I can't see Tom Thibodeau voluntarily saying, you know what, I'm healthy, let me go small, because he's never done it before. Maybe things change because, again, Fred Katz did mention he has the roster right now that he can trust to do that. But Tom Thibodeau, his mindset, his defensive scheme that he likes out there, he normally likes that traditional center out there, somebody that's blocking shots and rebounding the ball a lot. If Randle's playing that position or OG Anunoby's playing that position, then you're limiting them in terms of their game because you're asking them to do something that normally they wouldn't do. And that's exactly how injuries happen, when you do something you're not supposed to do. So in my opinion, OG Anunoby playing the 5, I'm not against it, especially if it's in short bursts, but only if we need to. If we don't need to, there's no reason to do that. And if I know our head coach in Tom Thibodeau, he's not going to do that unless he's forced to. If you enjoyed these clips from the live show, be sure to subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss any new episodes or when we go live. Thanks for watching, Knicks fans, and until next time, peace.